Hi there, I'm Roger, the Noob, and this is my friend,
Gaming Geek.
Gaming Geek. We're back. It's been a while since we've put up a Painting with the Noob video, so this will be the 9th video in our installment, something like that, 8th, 9th.
Yeah, something.
But we've got a few more for you guys planned in mind, so we'll hope you stay tuned and see what we've been doing. While we've been away, the Noob has been frantically painting his minis. He has the base set complete. We can now play every scenario with the base game, not the reliquary, and have all of our minis painted to cover the table. And we're going to show you some of those and go over those with you during the course of this video. But while we get back into the swing of things, I wanted to talk about some learnings to date. So everything that I've learned to date that we really haven't discussed or talked about painting minis as I've been doing it on my own. Alright, so the first one, and we've talked about this in the first episode, is an area to paint in and light. Okay, good lighting is essential. So get yourself some good lights, put them on your figures, try to remove the shades, and I like to paint in an area that I've got some room in and that I can watch TV or something, or hang out with the wife, right? Because you can sit there and paint and do other things and kind of multitask that way. I also love the headset. If you haven't got one and you're getting old, buy a headset. It also has extra light on it and lots of different magnification. So just another shout out for that light. I want to talk about putting together a brush set. So the Gamer Geek here knows how to paint, and he just told us in the very first video, just grab some brushes and go to town. That's great to get yourself started, but in reality I found that I need a lot of different brushes and sizes. You need a dry brush too, especially when you're doing the building, so you need that big flat one. And if you want to go for those extreme details, you need a super small brush. The quality of brushes are all over the place, right? But you don't have to go out and buy an expensive sable brush, right? That's like an $18, $20 brush to do this work, right? So you're going to learn about your brushes as you use them more and more, and there's always going to be that go-to brush. So go ahead, start with your cheapo brushes, but invest in a few finer brushes for your hobby here, and you'll get better. Then buy more expensive ones. As you get better, you'll probably go back and be like Gamer Geek, and just any old brush is going to work for you. But for us noobs, that's not going to happen. The palette. Okay, the paint palette is something that I've really learned to appreciate more and more. So you got all these paints and their thicknesses and their consistencies, and you put a glob of that on the paint. Then I find out that if I take a pool of water away from that initial glob, take some of my paint out of the thick stuff and start diluting it in the water. Then I start using that as a test for the consistency in every space in between. So for the noob, it helps me to get the right consistency of paint I need to cover the specific area I'm going for on my miniature. You got a palette. It takes up a lot of space on your palette, but you know what? If you're just doing a couple of minis, it's worth the effort, okay? So I call it the undiluted pool, the wet pool, and then everything in between. Brush sizes and detail painting. Again, I'm kind of falling back onto your brush set. Detail painting term. So what I've learned is you want to paint your the finest, most innermost details of the fig, right? That's like the face. That's the innermost part of the figure. But then there's some of these fine details on the exterior of the figure, like the belts and things like that. So what I found is when I'm painting, is I'll try to locate those innermost details first and paint those. Then I base paint the rest of the figure. Then I go back and do those fine outermost details like belts and daggers and all of these other wonderful things, right? That helps me not to have to go over and over and over an area, touching up and repainting. So I find that I can do that in the fewest most steps if I do that. Innermost fine details, continue the base paint, outermost fine details, then go back and touch up. So this is what we have to date, folks. We've got a storage solution I'm going to talk about here in a second. Okay, I'm ready to talk about the state of the game. There's been a lot of comments on Board Game Geek that I think are really unfounded. So this is just a little extra with the noob only thoughts and considerations and review. There's been a lot of Board Game Geek comments rules that people have just been shredding apart. So what I want to do in this segment is just say, hey, go through these rules slow. These rules are concise and well thought out. A lot of people in this day of gaming and aging just kind of want to blast through a rule set, and they're missing some of the nuances as they go along that can actually be answered by a careful reading of the rules. So before you get ready to play a scenario, read the scenario rules and then reread them and figure out how to apply the base rule set to that, including the new rules. So a lot of people, again, are asking questions, and the folks at Mythic Games have been phenomenal in answering the questions for people who have asked them, right? So great company, great shout out to them for doing that, for really keeping up in this forum on Board Game Geek and explaining how to play the game to people who need it. The setup time. Yep, okay, there's no getting around this. There is a lot of setup time involved. So organization is going to be key for you to get these things onto the table and to do it quickly. If you've got an area to set up and just leave it for a while and kind of play it out, I recommend doing that instead of trying to set it up and break it down each time, because there is so much. But as I've been playing with my toys and my minis and learning how to consolidate it and bring it all together, it's getting better and better. And so I've been doing that a lot and figuring out solutions to manage the scale of this game. You know, right now everything is contained in 3 large boxes. That's pretty good. Then you can start using some of these smaller boxes to travel with if you need to, and to also just store the painted minis, okay? So storage is something that Mythic is considering in version 1.5, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. And a way that they're going to offer something that, you know, through the Broken Token or one of these other game storage companies on how to, you know, manage this beast, right? But that could be an expensive proposition, and really just take what you got around the house, go out and buy a couple little things, storage trays or whatever you need to help you manage the game in the meantime. Don't spend a lot of money until we know what's going to happen in 1.5. So speaking about storage, you can see some of these wonderful unit storage trays that are available on Thingiverse. And we'll have the link to this in the title below, okay? It's the company or the group that makes them is called Board Game Creations, and they have 2 sizes, one for tall units and one for small units that you can print out and splice together. Currently there's only 8. Gamer Geek has made a nice 16 unit tray for me by simply splicing them together. Well, one of the beauties of this bad boy is you can start grouping your units together so you're not constantly looking for them. So if you're going to travel, you'll know exactly which ones you need to grab, put in your travel box, and go to your friends, right? So there's a tall one and a small one. They come in the 8 unit sizes. He's discussed putting them into, or making trays for the single unit minis, right? Because, you know, there's no way you can do that. But I suggest in the meantime for that, just take your typical 3 unit base, get some blue tack out, like this, over here, and this is kind of a pain in the ass, and stick those on there, and then stick the mini on top of it, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second, but that's another way to keep your singles together in a tray, and I've got a lot of those out here in front. The other thing that's wonderful about these trays is you can see that the miniatures stay in there pretty well, except for the ones that I didn't glue in quite right. But anyways, and I actually jostled this box pretty heavily, putting it into the car on my way to Gamer Geeks, and it stayed wonderfully in place. So these are great thing for storage and travel. You can look on the web. Other people are selling other types of storage solutions. I think they're expensive and a little crazy to print these out. I'm told that a lot of public libraries these days have 3D printers, so maybe you could take that file, whatever it's called, I'm not sure, I just forwarded it on to my friend Gamer Geek and he did it for me. Take that file to your local library on a USB drive or something like that and see if they can help you to print some of these out, and just use their cheap solution. How to affix the miniatures to the bases. There's been a lot of questions about this, and Oven Skill or Drake Kokler on Board Game Geek has gone through every scenario and figured out how to fix the bases and what figures you need. Again, we'll provide the link for that below. It describes how many units go on each base, which bases you can affix to a figure, and which ones you need to save and have loose. Okay, affixing them to these bases, there's a lot of solutions out there. People are using some micro dot sticky dots that you can buy at the store. Although I haven't been able to find those in a reusable size that works with the base. There are other dots out there that are permanent, so I don't know if you want to do that or not. I find that this is the best 88-cent solution for semi-permanently affixing your miniatures to their bases. This doesn't stick to plastic very well, but it sticks well enough that the minis aren't going to go anywhere unless you want them to. Quick review on the compendium and the role-playing game. Okay, the compendium is beautiful. I was a little disappointed in the amount of history that they provided and background on some of the characters, but you still got some. I was hoping for more of that. Really, the compendium is an art book, right? And if you're into that kind of thing, you're going to love it. Finally, I want to talk about the role-playing game. I'll probably never get to play it. Hopefully I will. It'll be great. The book is gorgeous. It's beautiful. There's so much history. Again, when I'm designing my own scenarios for Joan of Arc, which I've just begun to do, that role-playing game has been essential. It describes medieval towns. It describes their setups and their layouts, what you may or may not find inside of them, the kind of people that are in them, you know, just a lot about the culture. So there's a lot of that history that I was hoping that was in the compendium, right? They actually included in the role-playing book. So this role-playing book is actually going to be a reference for historians in one nice tome to find some information you need to help build your world. Those wonderful coat of arms that came with the... And you got this coat of arms. These coats of arms are the actual coats of arms that are named for the heroes in the game. So be careful when affixing these transfers and which transfers you want to use. Put them onto the hero that they belong to. It looks a lot cooler, and it's going to help you identify them based on the card given in the game. And that's been another one of the gripes about people. It's like, oh, I can't follow which hero is on the on the card, and I got to look. Well, that's what these transfers are for. These decals. It's going to help you identify and keep it straight. Another big qualm that people had was a lot of the named heroes in the game don't have an associated miniature. In that case, you're supposed to take one of your, men-at-arms figures or your sergeant-at-arms figures and paint it up real nice, like I've done with this guy, and I'll show you later. So just take one of those separate, and again, that's one of the figures that you will not need to affix permanently to a base. So these are some of the things that you can learn about if you look at that link that we've provided about who to affix to bases and who not to. So you're going to want to paint up a couple of special men-at-arms and sergeant-at-arms with their specific transfer decals, folks. So there's a shout out to Mythic again and the amount of detail that they put in the game. And finally, we want to talk about the future of painting with the Noob, right? So we've still got some things that we want to go over and get you guys moving as you move out of the base set and into the reliquary, right? That's where the really neat stuff is at. Not that this isn't neat, but you get into those mythical things and the beautiful sculpts that are involved with them. So we're going to do the large creatures. We're going to start with a couple of angels, some of those mid-sized things. Gamer Geek has already painted up the Trask for us so we could play a mythic scenario in order there. Came out beautiful. Looks a lot like the book in the compendium. So we've painted one large creature, so we're going to do a couple of more. Then we're going to paint a couple of huge creatures that came with the game. We've got 3 of them, I think. I think there's the Leviathan, the Beast, and of course the legendary dragon, right? There may be another one in there, I can't remember. But we got some other big ones like Gog and Magog and things like that. They're going to be very similar. So, at this point, everyone should know how to base their figure. Prime, base, and dry brush their figure, right? Those are the 3 things. That's all I've done. And wash. Forgot about washing there, okay? Mm-hmm. Everyone should know how to, prime it, base it, dry brush it, and possibly wash it, right? Those are the 4 basic things. That's all that I've done. in any of these figures that we have on the table, and they look amazing. Okay, so what we want to get into is some better highlighting techniques. We kind of started a little bit on the mounted knights and just showing you how to do some of the edges of their drapery over the horses. We're going to talk about shading and what is shading. Okay, we kind of do a little bit of that with the washing and things like that, but we can do it without washing, right? So that's an advanced technique. Mixing and layering paints for effect, which just kind of comes out of shading, I think. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, mixing and layering paints that come out of effect. And finally, painting some insignias and designs. So I've seen some of the stuff Gamer Geek here does for his figures, like runes and, but we're just going to go for some basic, stripes across the shield, and we might get a little bit more technical. We'll see. That brings us finally to the compendium and some of the super advanced painting techniques that you can find in there. I know Gamer Geek's going to be able to reproduce those results, and then the Noob will follow behind him and see what type of results I can get out of painting one of these 15 millimeter figures using these shading and like this blue armor that they show in the compendium. That's amazing, and they describe how he got that effect, right? Not for the Noob, for the advanced painter. We'll attempt that to kind of be wrapping up the end of the series. So we hope you'll stay tuned. We'll be back. Love all, serve all the best.